Tag Heuer Carrera, Speedmaster, and Zenith Primero. Those are normally the first three alternatives that come to most people's minds when you're talking about alternatives to the Daytona. And they're all available for sale both at retail and pre-owned, well under the Rolex Daytona's current, as of May 2021, pre-owned price of around 30 to 40,000 US. That's all well and good, but how many Daytona buyers really buy it for the history or technical proficiency? Hi everyone and welcome to Shaluso, and yes, today we are talking about Daytona alternatives. Now the alternatives I mentioned in the intro are all viable alternatives, albeit kind of predictable, but today I want to talk about some alternatives that are perhaps less obvious but that address more of the reasons as to why people buy Daytonas and why they're in such high demand, to the point that a $13,000 watch is currently selling for more than $30,000, $35,000 in some cases, $40,000. And let's be honest, apart from the minority of people who are buying it for its history or for its tech specs, and some people genuinely just like the look of it, people are buying it because it's a status symbol, because of its value retention, and because they think it's rare. But today I'm going to talk about three watches that can match each of those elements, as well as even surpass them in some cases. So first, let's talk about status symbols. Flex appeal. Now, if you want to have a status symbol on your wrist, in my view at least, it has to be something that appeals to the mainstream. There's no point in showing off with something that only a select few will like. So if you want something that's genuinely a status symbol, it has to be something the masses recognize. It's the reason why a Lange perpetual calendar in white, gold, or platinum will not get as much attention as a Rolex Daytona from your average person. Hell, for the majority of people. Even for a lot of watch people, they might even not recognize it. So you need something that everyone will recognize that isn't a Rolex Daytona. For that, we have the Hublot Big Bang. Since releasing the Big Bang in 2005, Hublot has done an amazing job at elevating the recognition of both the Big Bang as well as the brand itself. Their collaborations with football, with basketball, with Formula One have all helped to elevate Hublot as being one of the most recognizable brands within the mainstream, outside of the watch community. Definitely everyone recognizes Rolex, but if we're being honest, someone who's not into watches at all isn't going to recognize a Patek Philippe, not even a Nautilus. There has to be some level of interest to even recognize those. But something like Hublot, people will still recognize it right away because they've managed to make themselves much more recognizable through all the marketing they've done. And the Big Bang is obviously the stereotypical Hublot, available in tons of different materials. But even if we look at the classic Big Bang in titanium and ceramic with the carbon fiber dial, rubber strap with that sort of tire tread pattern, it's instantly recognizable. And you can get something like this from anywhere from about $6,000 or $7,000 up to about $14,000, which is its retail. So even though it's worth slightly more than when I reviewed it last year, for example, back then it was about $6,000 to $13,000 if my memory serves, it's still something that's much more accessible than even a Daytona at retail, let alone one at its pre-owned value. And if you're talking about flex appeal per dollar spent, you're getting much better value from the Hublot, while still not sacrificing that much. You know, the difference between the amount of people who will recognize that Daytona and the ones who will recognize the Hublot is not that much. And if you're getting a watch just to flex, really, who cares that it's got a Solida on the inside? At the end of the day, what matters is people see it and recognize it, and what better way than a 44mm Hublot on your wrist? But let's face it, at a $13,000 retail price, selling for about $7,000 on the pre-owned market, it's not going to appeal to the people who want the Daytona because of its resale value. They want an investment watch, value retention. So if that's the case, then instead of forking out $35,000 for a mass-produced watch that isn't even that rare and that doesn't feature nearly any hand craftsmanship, why not spend your money on something that's gone up in the last 2 years and that also has a ton more hand craftsmanship, is much more exclusive, and comes from a brand that, while maybe not as ubiquitous as Rolex, definitely holds a lot more clout within the watch world. And that's Audemars Piguet. Now, I'm not talking about the standard Royal Oak in blue. No, I'm talking about the Royal Oak Offshore on a bracelet, specifically the one with the panda dial. I reviewed this back in 2019, and at that point, the particular example that I reviewed, that one was worth $14,000 US. Now that one has gone on and sold, but now if you look at the pre-owned market worldwide for this Royal Oak Offshore, you won't find one for less than $21,000 US. And that's only in 2 years. And that's because AP is a brand that is on the come up. More and more people outside of the watch community are starting to recognize it. Meanwhile, its icon, the Royal Oak, has been steadily trailing the Nautilus in terms of going up in resale value. Demand for steel watches is always high. And when it comes to Royal Oaks, the highlight is the bracelet. But the thing about the Offshore is that it's mostly known for the rubber strap or the hornback leather strap. So finding one of these on a bracelet is very difficult. And that's one of the reasons why I think also it's a better value retention play, because it's already seen its depreciation. It hit its floor. It retailed for about $27,000, $28,000, and now it's climbing up to that point. The higher end of the pre-owned value of it is around that $28,000 mark. So you know that it's something that will probably end up surpassing that soon enough, because it's genuinely rare, genuinely exclusive. It has more backing it, and it is actually discontinued. So you know they're not going to keep making more of these. It's only going to get harder to find them. And then the last thing about the Daytona is that people say that it's rare, which in my view is something so difficult to comprehend why this perception is there, because it's from Rolex. They are a mass-producing machine. They produce 1 million watches a year, and yes, Daytonas are produced much less than, say, Submariners. But even if you think each AD says, okay, I get 2 per year, think of how many ADs there are. Even if we're being conservative, you're probably going to end up with production of what, maybe 500 a year? And it's been in production since 2016. You do the math, you're already looking at about 2,000 units. If you log on to Chrono right away, you'll find 500 available. So what can we look at to put that in perspective? We have the Breitling Premier B01 for Bentley with the wooden dial. This was a limited edition of 1,000 pieces spread out between leather strap versions and steel versions. If you go on Breitling's website, you can still find the leather strap version, but you can't find the steel version anymore. And then when you look at pre-owned, if you look on Chrono 24, there's currently just under 500 Daytonas available on Chrono 24. For this Bentley edition on the bracelet, you can only find 3 examples. 3. So when people say hard to get, it's difficult to believe that, considering there's 500 of those, 3 of these available, and that's just on one platform. And then on top of that, you add to the fact that how many wooden dial watches really have you seen? Have you ever seen one of these Premiers in the wild before, in this edition? Worldwide, there's only 1,000 pieces, and they've probably sold out the allocation in the steel bracelet version. It tells you this is not a common watch, and it's only going to become less common and harder to find over time. And that's reflected in the price as well, considering that this, when I reviewed it, that one was on offer for about 6,000 or 7,000 US at the time. I really wish I had the money to buy it at that point, because it was a crazy deal. Because if you look now, if you look on Chrono 24, the cheapest example you can find on the steel bracelet is 9,500 US, with the other 2 reaching about 11,500, so a touch over retail. This tells you this is a watch that definitely is difficult to find, so those that want it really want it and know that they have to pay for it. So if you want something rare, don't go for something that's mass produced. A limited edition will almost always be more rare than something like a Daytona. It's a regular production model. But in any case, let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these alternatives? Obviously, the Daytona is its own world, and that's the reason why it commands such a high price. It combines the 3 of these elements together. But what I'd like to know is, why would you want to get a Daytona? And having thought about it a bit more, what other alternatives do you think there are that can match or beat it on those individual traits in the same way the watches I've described today are? Let me know, if it was your money and you had 35 grand to spend, would you buy the Daytona, or would you get any of these, keep the change, and maybe buy a few other watches? I'd love to know your thoughts, opinions, and alternatives in the comments below. And of course, if you like this video, make sure you like it and share it. If you want to see more pictures and infographics of watches, make sure you follow me on Instagram at Shaluso. If you want to see more videos of watches, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell as well, so you know when the next video comes out. In any case, thanks for watching this video, and we'll catch you on the next one.